Halls of Fame celebrate the most elite and legendary leaders in their field, but there's no one to honor the Halls of Fame themselves for their contributions. Until now. Join me as I tour the country, inducting these revered institutions into my own personal Hall of Fame of Halls of Fame. Along the way, I'll interview the curators and historians who fill these destinations with priceless artifacts and inspiring stories. I'm Bradley Barth, and this is Hall Pass. Today's Hall Pass grants us access to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Founded in 1963, this homage to American football has enshrined 371 members as of August 2023. Having welcomed more than 10 million visitors, the museum contains 118,000 square feet of exhibits featuring the greatest to ever grace the gridiron. And today, I'll be huddling up with Jason Aikens, curator of collections, who's worked at the Hall since 1997. We'll find out which player's hair made it into the Hall of Fame, which famous game has been impossible to get memorabilia from, and why the last 2 Super Bowl rings have taken bling to a whole new level. Jason, I'm really glad that you could be spending some time with me today. I got a chance to walk. Yeah. And I got a chance to walk through the halls a bit. I went into, of course, the room of busts just to see all the greats there, including from my team, the Jets. I mean, I have a friend that tells me, I bet on all the wrong horses. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Jets fan. I pick all the losers. But even though I still haven't actually seen my team ever win a Super Bowl, it's still a thrill to be able to go in there and see all these players that you know from their history, some of which you actually got to see play. And see their busts actually on display there. So that's what's meaningful to me when I see some of those Jets players. Is there a particular inductee, someone represented on those busts that's especially meaningful to you?
Well, my favorite player growing up was Jack Youngblood. He famously played with a broken leg. And when I first started here in 1997, he wasn't in the hall yet, and you could get a personalized license plate as an employee, and I really thought Jack Youngblood should be in, so my plate was HOF 85, and that was his number, and then he did get in a couple years later. And so he's been here for quite a while. He's got a chance to meet him, but he famously played in Super Bowl 14 with a broken leg.
Yeah.
Just one of the toughest guys around. And he was a throwback to an earlier era. But it's interesting. You said you were Jets fans. I'm actually heading to New Jersey tomorrow to Joe Klecko's house.
Oh, great!
To gather his collection. He has quite a bit of memorabilia and artifacts and archival materials, and his daughter-in-law wants to have a display of his collection at his party, and we're going to display some of the things here, and so I'll be heading over there. NFL Films is going to cover it. So,
nice.
So, and occasionally a person has such a big collection that we need to go to the location and pick it up. So, I grew up in the 80s, and he was a big
part
figure.
of the New York Sack Exchange.
And so it's going to be great to meet him, and it's always fascinating when the players start talking about their collections and when they look at it, and all the stories start flowing back. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Klecko being one of 2 Jets that are actually making it in this year, along with Darrell Revis, and it was good. So it was cool that you actually got to meet Youngblood when he actually got inducted. Since you were actively campaigning and advocating for him to get in.
These I've heard it said that presidential elections are easier to predict than Hall of Fame elections. I mean, you can do all these, there's been different campaigns over the years, and I remember Jerry Kramer was there was a big campaign, And right before he got inducted, another Packer, Dave Robinson from the same era, got inducted, and nobody had really been there. Hadn't been a campaign for him, and I wonder if all these folks that were big Jerry Kramer fans, they must have been scratching their head. Why did this guy? And so it is totally unpredictable. And there's a national board, and
it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be a controversy this person got in, so why didn't this person get in? But that's part of the fun of it too, is the endless debate over because sometimes it can be purely about numbers and statistics, but other times there's intangibles, and you have to weigh that as well.
Yeah, you have to have a process that makes it special.
Yeah.
If it was, if it was easy, it wouldn't be a special thing to be enshrined.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen different things over the years.
Yeah.
But it's always fun to meet the Hall of Famers and talk about their collections and visit with them, and it's always a great experience.
Yeah, and museums and halls of fame like these, what's so cool about them is the fact that they act in a way like time capsules that can transport you back to these bygone eras of the sport, and you really get to see how things even evolve over time. And maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that with you in a minute, but I would be curious, if you had an actual time machine that could take you to any time and place in the history of football, is there a particular event that you would like to personally witness if you could go back in time and see it?
I do. I'd like to see. I've been reading. David Moranis recently wrote a book on Jim Thorpe, and I'd love to see him in his heyday at Carlisle, and then in his early days in Canton. People would come out to see him, and he was kind of the name was a draw in itself.
Yeah,
and
all around athlete. I mean, I think he was great at everything.
Yeah, he was playing Major League Baseball during the summer, and then playing pro football in the fall, and was a great Olympian, and just to see how the game was played. I mean, there are some films out there, but there isn't a lot of full games or anything like that. And to see that first, some of the games from the first season, that would be really cool to see. But yeah, so I'm kind of I'm really interested in the early years, the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. It would be really cool to see how the game was played back then, and see there's just snippets of some of these players, Ernie Nevers and Joe Guyon, and there's just a few things here and there, but just to get a chance to see them in full action, would be great to see.
Oh, I mean, I'm with you 100% on that. And I mean, one of the really neat things about going to a Hall of Fame like this is that you can at least view some of the equipment and uniforms that these players wore back then in the early part of the 20th century. And, it's funny because we look at how professional football has tried over the years to make the sport safer by adding in all these new innovations to their helmets and everything like that. And obviously there's still work to be done there, but they've come a long way, and you really realize how much of a long way they've come when you look back at what they were originally wearing, back in the 1910s and 1920s, where you wonder just like, how were people not, getting decapitated all the time with, like these leather helmets and and it's really interesting to see how things like that have changed changed over time. The footballs too, much bigger and thicker.
Yeah.
You couldn't pass them, nor could you pass them anyway because
Sure.
there was no forward
Yeah,
passing
I mean,
originally.
it was, if you threw, more than 10 times a game, I mean, that was, that was incredible, a lot. And, the game had always been, rough and tumble. And that's part of the reason why the forward pass was instituted in 1906 is, players were dying on the field from head injuries with the flying wedge. And that's why, first it was 6, then 7 men on the line of scrimmage, all to make it the game safer. So people feel it's dangerous now. Well, there were people dying at the turn of the century, and there was people like Teddy Roosevelt thought, it would make young men, tough guys, and improve American culture, and he wanted to save it. And going through the museum, you could see a lot of the leather equipment, and they pretty much use what they could. They tried at one point. We have a nose guard on display, which was a rubber piece that would go over your nose, and you'd bite on it. It was to protect your nose from being broken, and it didn't really. It did more harm than good, but that's always been part of the game. And any contact sport, there's going to be there's going to be injuries, and safety is going to be concerned, and you're going to make rule changes. And I mean, a few years ago, baseball, you can't crash into the into the catcher anymore. So there's always, anytime there's a contact sport, there's going to be equipment changes and rule changes to make it safer.
Yeah. Something else that was interesting that you also could see evolve over the years was just the Super Bowl championship rings, which started out looking very much classically like your college graduation ring.
Sure, yeah, like a class ring, yeah.
Like a class ring. And then over the years, they just really blinged it out to like where it's, can you even lift your hand with the ring on your finger?
Yeah.
They've gotten really ostentatious but interesting to look at with a lot of fine details.
Well, now you can twist off the top of the ring. The last 2 rings. Jason of Beverly Hills, he created a design where you can twist the top off, and there's a engraving of the stadium of the Rams and the Chiefs.
SoFi Stadium,
and then there's an actual piece of the leather ball is in the ring. So it's really, he was worked with on some of the NBA championship rings, and pitched the idea to the Rams, and then the Chiefs liked it as well, and so there's just been or actually it was first to the Buccaneers and then the Rams, but it'll be interesting to see what the Chiefs come up with this year. Should be an announcement pretty soon, but yeah, it has changed over the years. Originally, championship teams got a little gold football for winning the championship, and you could put it on your pocket watch chain, or maybe your tie clasp, or give it to your girlfriend, and we have and they called it a watch fob, and we have a little gold football from the 1920 Akron Pros, who were the first champions of the NFL. And I always say that's the first Super Bowl ring, and it's not even an inch long. And you don't start seeing the Super Bowl rings come out, or rings given to champions, I should say, until post World War II. And even some of those were very simple. Some were just gold, or just a little tiny diamond. And then those Packer rings, kind of look like a class ring. So the game is changed quite a bit from those early origins.
Yeah, and it is interesting to see how creative they get year over year. The one that sticks out in my mind is the Patriots Super Bowl ring, the one where they defeated the Atlanta Falcons, and they were trailing 28-3 at halftime. So they incorporated that thematically into the diamond, the number of diamonds, and, stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of engravings and hidden messages inside the ring. Some of the rings inside of them is the scores of the game. It was interesting. One of the Steelers rings, I think it was the Super Bowl IX ring, they had the scores engraved, and one of them went on sale, and it was in some 30 years later, and it was in a Pittsburgh newspaper, and they had enlarged the ring. And somebody noticed that the score for their playoff victory over the Buffalo Bills was incorrect. And somebody called the newspaper angrily, are you selling a fake ring? And so the newspaper did some investigating, and turned out that all the Steelers rings that year had the wrong score. And you think about it, how the playoff games, do you really pay attention to the losing team's score? It was the Buffalo Bills score that was incorrect.
Right.
And you pay attention to the winning team score, but yeah. So there is a lot of different messaging and symbols in the ring that really each ring kind of tells its own, encapsulates the season and tells its own story.
I did ask you before what would be your dream fantasy scenario if you could hop in a time machine and see anything.
Sure.
What was the actual most meaningful or coolest football event or game that you actually did witness in person?
Well, I did have a chance to go to Super Bowl 36, and that was right after 9/11. And what I remember from that is, of course, famously, Adam Vinatieri kicked the game-winning field goal at the end.
Yeah.
But I do remember U2's halftime show. And if you remember, they had a banner with all the names of the victims of the World Trade Center
that was very
bombing.
poignant.
So that was really impactful. And then Bob Kraft was very classy at the end of the game, and they upset the Rams and said, today, everybody should feel as though they're patriots, and so that was kind of and I was pulling for the Rams, but how could I, after that moment, how could I really feel bad? That,
Sure.
This was something, the victims were honored, and this was something celebrating America and the United States. So that took so you kind of put things in perspective.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a Jets fan, so you can imagine I was rooting for the Rams too.
So that's they've developed quite the rivalry over the last few years.
Yeah, for sure, and the Jets are always in the wrong end of it. All right, I want to play a little word association game called Superlatives, where you tell me which items from your collection come to mind when I say certain adjectives. So what is your strangest or most bizarre artifact?
Well, we have Edgerrin James's hair.
Okay.
So he was famous for his dreadlocks, and he got tackled. He kept getting tackled by his dreads.
They would yank him down,
which it's not illegal. And a game against the Browns, he got tackled by the dreads, and it kind of messed up his dreads. So he cut them off, and he really felt this was part of him, and he he decided to keep him. This was he couldn't bear to part with them. And then when he was inducted, he sent them to us. So that's one of the stranger things. I don't, if a fan had somehow gotten, obtained his dreads, I don't know if we would have, but it was very meaningful to them. And, we kind of emphasized that, when you're making the Hall of Famers, when you're making their donations, what's meaningful to them. Joe Thomas he has a farm now and he's raising cows. And he donated a tag from one of his cows to the hall, and that's what he's into now. And that's another strange thing, but I do think the hair.
That's a good one. I would say maybe the only other hair that particularly sticks out in my mind that might trump that is Troy Polamalu's hair. If you had his hair.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But otherwise,
he didn't have to fear getting tackled by his hair. Yeah.
All right. What about, I like to call this one, what should I steal? Meaning, what's your most valuable artifact?
I don't know where this is going. Anything from Jim Thorpe or Jim Brown, who just passed away.
Yeah.
And kind of a weird aspect of collecting. I mean, we're collecting for historical reasons. We're not collecting for monetary reasons. We're not doing any buying or selling, but when somebody passes away, the value of their, whatever is associated with them goes up. And then I'm giving you three people. Tom Brady also, his memorabilia is skyrocketing as well. So those are the three guys that are kind of shooting our way, at the top as far as value. So I gave you three.
No, that's great. That's more than enough. More than enough. What about? Yeah, sorry. No,
I was going to say I don't know if perhaps an appraiser or somebody could kind of tell who's definitively above, but they're all very close.
Yeah. What about rarest? Is that the same as the most valuable, or not necessarily?
Well, we have William Putch, or the document that shows that William Putch Heffelfinger is the first paid professional player.
I saw that. Yeah. That was very cool. Yes.
Yeah, so that's the first documented case of somebody being paid to play. So and nothing else has survived from that game in 1892. So that's, and then we have the meeting minutes to the first meeting of the NFL. So those are some of the most rare pieces that we have.
Definitely.
And somebody would be hard pressed to kind of find something from that game that that William Putch Heffelfinger played in. Yeah.
I'm going to also ask you about this one since it just came up in our conversation before we started. You have one of the Madden cruisers.
Yes, yeah. So we have the original one from 1987. It's on, visitors can see it here on the Pro Football Fame's campus, and it's open to tours this summer. And it is so large. When we originally built the Hall of Fame, there wasn't a thinking of a bus being in here. But John Madden was, of course, he was the biggest fan of the Hall, biggest football fan ever. Kind of the more the father of the kind of the post Super Bowl era, and people would take rides in his Madden Cruiser, and he would talk about football. That was his passion, and and he's beloved by the people that were around when he coached, and then in his broadcasting career, and then the people that have played Madden video games, which is most Super Bowl fans or most NFL fans, and also the young people. So that was, and he always was very supportive of the Hall, funded a lot of our educational programming, was always encouraging other other people to donate and support. So yeah, that's been a great addition to us.
All right, I've got one more of these for you for this game, and it's kind of a two-parter. What item was the most challenging to get your hands on, that you really had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops in order to get it? And what's your white whale? What's the item that you've been trying to get for forever that you wish you could get, but you still haven't attained it yet?
So I love this artifact because it was more of a hot button topic or hot button artifact a few years ago, but we have Tim Tebow's jersey from the playoff game against the Steelers, where he set the NFL record for highest yards per attempt in a playoff game. And if you might remember that year, the Broncos were winning in mysterious ways that year. It always seemed to be some field goal or something, and it was every game was a rock fight, and some people were arguing they're winning because of Tebow. People were arguing that he's
in spite of him.
Yeah, and so we went. His agent was very concerned about his jersey, so we had to fly to Denver to get the jersey, and our assistant curator went there and packed it and put it on his carry-on and took it back. And we haven't had to do that often, but it was and that was at the time a lot of people were doing the Tim Tebow,
yes,
kneel down, and it was just, I loved to just watch people as they went by, because just the visceral, either they thought it was the greatest thing,
right,
or the worst thing.
Yes, he's like a strangely divisive figure that people really love him, or they're like, eh.
He's a great. I mean, very charitable, and I don't get it, but it, we very rarely we had an artifact that caused such a reaction amongst the fans. Another artifact that we have Pat Tillman's Army Ranger jacket and his jersey, and that resonates with a lot of people as well. But yeah, the Tim Tebow jersey, we had to go through a lot of hoops and ladders, and the equipment manager who I work with quite a bit. I mean, he would send us things from all the different Bronco, just put things in the mail and send it to us, and he was taken aback at the fact that somebody had to fly out there and get it. And so that was one of the more challenging ones.
Yeah, and then is there one that you're still trying to get that you haven't gotten?
Oh yes, I would love to get something from the catch.
Okay.
The '81 NFC Championship game with the Cowboys and the 49ers.
Yes.
Joe Montana to Dwight Clark. Nobody knows where the football is, or the jersey that Dwight Clark wore, or what what Joe Montana wore. Something from that play, which resonates with so many people. We have things from the Immaculate Reception, the Ice Bowl.
Franco Harris, who he just passed too recently.
The Adam Vinatieri, the Super Bowl 36, and a lot of the great plays we do have, great moments we do have things from, but we don't have anything from the catch. And I was only 10 years old. So I didn't have a say at that time, but that's kind of the one thing we're still looking for.
Yeah. Do you say you had something from the Ice Bowl game? Is that what you said?
Well, we have Danny Villanueva. He was the kicker for the Cowboys. We have his shoes. We have a bench, a sideline bench from the game. We have the heating coil that was underneath the field.
Yeah.
That the team it was supposed to keep the field from freezing, but they thought it would overheat, and so they turned it off, and that created some of the conditions. So we do have some things from cool. that game, but the catch, even like Ed Too Tall Jones's jersey from he was trying to knock down the pass from but anything would be great. And I'm not a Cowboys or 49ers fan.
No, but still, of course, it's still an incredibly famous moment in football history.
Yeah, we do have the ball that was used in the Philly special. Yeah, and we also have Nick Foles' jersey and helmet. Yeah. So most of the great plays we have covered. One of the games that Steve Young, when he made his stumbling run against the Vikings, we have a Steve Young jersey, but not from that. But a lot of the great moments we do have managed to collect something.
Do you have a deflated football?
No, we do have things from Tom Brady, and one of the footballs that went into the stands that day was sold on auction.
Okay.
But no, we don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that whistle sound that you did not hear because we're going to insert it into post-production after the fact signifies that we've reached the halftime portion of our interview. So I thought once we hit the halfway point, it might be fun to play a little game, and I would ask you some questions about Super Bowl halftime shows.
Okay.
So I'm going to name some famous halftime shows, and you can tell me if you have a particular item from that show.
Okay.
Or if not that, maybe something that is comparable to it.
Sure.
All right. So Super Bowl 49 in 2015 featured the very bubbly and quirky Katy Perry, and she was almost overshadowed by her backup dancer, Left Shark.
Okay.
So that was the guy in the shark costume who was really into it.
Hamming it up,
and he became like a whole meme, like pretty much, exactly. Yeah, Do you have the Left Shark costume?
No. We, each year, we make sure to collect a football signed by the halftime performers. We've been doing that since Super Bowl 30, which was I think Vanessa Williams was the. We have Luther Vandross's coat. We have one of the guitars from Kiss, but it is. But we kind of went through the football route. Because it is difficult to we think it's difficult to get things from football players. Well, rock musicians are really difficult, and I know the curator at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and most of their collection is on loan because it's so hard to get rock and rollers to donate things because from what I understand, they want to keep things in the market, or they might use the costumes later on down the road. We did collaborate with the 2 years ago with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on a Super Bowl halftime show exhibit.
That's fun.
Yeah, there was things from, and they were able to collect things from the performers.
Right.
They had Lady Gaga's dress, and I think one of Prince's guitars, and again, it was only a short term. We were hoping to tour it. And it was only a short-term loan. But I was amazed, just learning that, most performers, it's a dream of theirs to be at that shows you've made it.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt like, oh, they're just kind of being dragged out there. But no, it's there.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's a big
dream.
prestige thing at this point. But it's another interesting thing to look at chronologically in terms of the evolution of football, because for a couple of decades there, the early Super Bowls were marching bands. There was that group
Grambling.
Up With People that they would appear over.
Yeah, they would
again.
they had these pageantry shows. Disney would do a lot of them, and I remember the bowl games. They would when I was a kid would have these pageantry, and my mom didn't like football. And I would always joke to her, like, "Are you going to watch the pageantry of the Orange Bowl at halftime? You don't like football." She's like, "No, I'm not interested in that either." so I don't know who they were feeling to.
Well, that's the thing about the Super Bowl too. Everybody watches it, and if you don't like the game, you can watch the halftime show. And if you don't like the halftime show, you can watch the commercials, and it's all part of the experience. Let me ask you about a couple other halftime shows real quick, and then we'll go back to some of the regular questions. You talked about Disney, and actually Super Bowl 29 in 1995 had a pretty strange halftime show. It had people like Patti LaBelle and Tony Bennett, but it also had Indiana Jones, but not Harrison Ford, but just a fake imposter Indiana Jones, heroically rescuing the Vince Lombardi trophy from a bunch of bad guys. And it was all supposed to promote like a new Disney Indiana Jones ride. Do you have Indiana Jones whip and fedora? Or even if you don't have, do you have anything from any of like the old, not that was even that old of a halftime show, but do you have any from like the marching band era or anything like that?
We do have some of the things that the fans had in the stands, to like the flags and things to they'd flash the stadium and everybody would be doing a certain thing, and so we do. But no, we don't. We have, like, for instance, things from the Baltimore Colts marching band, the Washington Redskins, but not. We would collect it. One of the things recently we've been getting is some of the costumes. You'll see it in our Pro Football Today gallery, but some of the costumes from some of the Super Bowl halftime shows, or some of the Super Bowl NFL commercials. This year was Diana Flores. She was the
with the flag football.
Yeah, the flag football, and she's being chased, but yeah, mostly we get the footballs autographed by and they are quite popular for visitors to see when they come.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All right, one more quick one, because I would be remiss not to at least have to ask you about this one last halftime show moment. You probably already know where this is going. Super Bowl 38 in 2004 featured Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake and a very famous or infamous wardrobe malfunction. Do you have the torn dress?
No. We do have Janet Jackson signed the football. So yeah, and I think most of the performers sign it before, because I was wondering if we were going to get that one, and I think they sign it before the show, because I don't know if they would have wanted her. The NFL would have wanted her autograph after that. But yeah, that was quite, and I was sitting in the stands, and most of us in the stands didn't notice what had happened.
I didn't realize it the first time myself, actually, when I was watching at home.
Yeah, and when I called home, my wife, there was a streaker right before kickoff, or the second act kickoff, that came onto the field, and from what I understand, the networks were able to prevent the people at home from seeing that. And so I after the game, I called home and I asked my wife, I'm like, "Did you see the streaker?" And she said, "No, did you see Janet Jackson?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I saw her before." But yeah, so it's kind of that was kind of a unique, people in the stadium had a different experience than the people at home. That was kind of unusual.
Yes, yes. It probably is the most talked about halftime show moment
Yeah.
in history.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, that was fun. Let's go back to some regularly
On the
scheduled,
field. Yeah.
on the field questions. Where do you go looking for collection pieces? Who typically works with you to scout or hunt for these objects?
Well, one of the things we do is before the season starts, we look at what records are coming up, upcoming, and what could be broken. And so we reach out to the teams and tell them like, hey, if so and so does this, we would love to collect something. I always, when that person doesn't reach that record, I always feel like I'm a jinx, or it is kind of an awkward thing a lot of times when people are approaching. The one time maybe I'm not a jinx, but the one time it really worked out was when Ray Lewis announced his retirement. And I contacted the Ravens and I said, we'd love to get the uniform from his last game. And they, the Ravens were struggling to get into the playoffs that year. It wasn't a sure thing. And the Ravens, said, yeah, we'll send them. And lo and behold, they get in the playoffs. They get all the way to the Super Bowl, and they win the Super Bowl over the 49ers. And so we got his uniform from that Super Bowl. So that was a case where that was his last game, so we got so that worked out.
It's great when you can anticipate things,
Sure.
or even if you're actively watching a game like the Vinatieri game-winning kick, where you're like, well, that's going to be important, so we need that.
Yeah.
What about some of the older items where, like, how do you certify the authenticity of really old items, especially nowadays? I'm sure, like any important game, a Super Bowl, the items, the balls are watermarked, I'm sure, in their own way or something.
Yeah.
So how do you know when something is actually real from that's like this thing that somebody tries to give you?
Yeah, so we work a lot with the Hall of Famers and the teams directly, and then there's also private individuals. For instance, that that little watch fob that from the Akron Pros, that was it was a grandson of one of the players. And everything we're getting we don't have a budget to purchase anything. So people are not, they're not going to donate things that are fake, that are inauthentic. There's no real reason to do that. But we do have to, or photo match things. We'll look at photos from games or video, or now the photos are great. High resolution photos, and we're just so there's not a mistake. We have had instances where teams have sent the wrong gloves or shoes. Somebody from the equipment manager just grabs the shoe or the gloves from the. So those are some of the things, we can tell a little bit from, if it looks game used or not. We're trying to be accurate with everything. For instance, the Sayers family had his Gale Sayers shoes, and initially we hoped it was from the 6 TD game, and we looked at this. The shoes they sent had white trim, which he did wear in a few of his seasons, many of his games. But that game against the 49ers where he had 6 TDs was a totally black shoe. So we do need to look at the the video photography of the game, just to make sure that we're accurate. Not so much that we're afraid somebody's going to send us something that is a
fraud.
Yeah.
How much of your collection is on public display at any given time? What do you have all together collectively in storage?
So less than 1% of our collection is on exhibit at any one point. Yeah, and we have about 30,000 objects, and then we have millions of pages of documents.
Are they all here on site?
Yep. Yeah. We have an archives here. So it's a challenge to get into the hall. It's also another challenge to get your things on display. We have traveling exhibits. We have an exhibit at the Super Bowl. We have an exhibit in Myrtle Beach right now. We've collaborated with different museums. I mentioned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Pat Tillman's jacket was at the 9/11 Memorial. So we're looking at getting our collection as many places as possible, but there's only so much space, and it also allows us to change our exhibits all the time, and make things, refresh the museum, and give people something new to see whenever they visit.
Yeah. Do you? Is there a fun fact, a little known fact about this museum that would surprise me?
So the hall was before the hall was here. This was part of the Canton City Parks, and the people of Canton raised money to create a hall here, and the city of Canton leases this spot to us for $1 a year. Initially, it was a 99-year lease in 1963, and we still. I talked to our facilities manager one day or brought that up, and he says, "Yeah, I receive that bill each year from the city of Canton." So we leased this land for $1 a year, and that was part of to kind of grease the wheels for bringing the hall here. The city of Canton offered the steering committee to, you can have this land here. It'll be $1 a lease, so there won't be a burden on the museum for rental. And sadly, there has been instances where museums have had to close because the rental fees were too high. So so we're leasing this land for $1 a year. So that probably most people don't realize.
Yeah.
Like that, and of course, city government, you do need, they would charge that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't just said, here's $99.
I just know, as a New Yorker, I'm very jealous of that deal, considering the cost of living in my neck of the woods.
But the citizens are very proud of having the hall here, and it was a collaborative effort on behalf of the community to have it here.
Yeah, well, the museum is based in Canton really for a couple of reasons, because of Professional Football's association with the area. We talked about Jim Thorpe, and he played here. You had the Canton Bulldogs here.
The first meeting of the NFL was here in Canton.
Right, yes, or the association that preceded the NFL and ultimately became the NFL. So tell me a little bit about some of the items you have on display here that is particularly representative of the football's regional history here in the Canton area.
So we have a few of the artifacts from Jim Thorpe, his Carlisle Indian school sweater. We have a few of the jerseys and uniforms from the Canton Bulldogs, one of their fobs that they also won. Of course, Akron had to snatch the 1920 championship, but the Canton Bulldogs were the first back-to-back champions in 1922 and 1923. So we do have, and then of course we have a lot of history from the Cleveland Browns, who came a little bit later. And then of course a lot of artifacts from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh is only 2 hours away. So this whole area was kind of a hotbed of professional football.
The actual Hall of Fame ceremonies take place in the adjacent stadium. Mm-hmm. Do you do anything special here within the museum and the bust gallery or anything like that while those ceremonies are going on for the week?
we have extended hours. A lot of times we'll have extra presentations. At one point, when the ceremony was on the front steps, the museum was closed, so you couldn't be touring. They didn't want somebody barging in on Weeb Eubanks speech or Joe Namath, coming out with their souvenirs. But yeah, it is a very and we have our new class exhibit, which was just opened up. But that is our busiest weekend of the year, is those 3 days with the game and the enshrinement.
What was the inspiration behind the magic chalkboard room that you have here in the museum, where you actually get with the holograms of the players?
Oh, yeah. Football. Part of our mission statement is to promote the positive values of the game, and the game for life kind of. Features a lot of the NFL players and Hall of Famers, and a lot of the things they overcame and where they started, and their inspirational stories and life lessons they have from the game that they've been able to use throughout their life. And then we have Joe Namath, New York Jets, kind of as the MC, but as a hologram. And then we have Vince Lombardi, an actor, plays Vince Lombardi, the same actor from the Wonder Years, if you remember that.
I do.
That TV show. And he talks about, you won't be perfect, but if you chase perfection, you'll reach excellence. And that was kind of the Packers mentality, winning 6 championships. So that's an experience that kind of fulfills our mission as far as promoting the positive values of the game.
Yeah. You had mentioned before about one of your all-time favorite players, but I did just want to go back and ask any other particularly memorable visitations from players over the years that really stick out in your mind.
Well, I do. I did get it. A lot of the players, they're being moved around, and they kind of describe it as a wedding ceremony. So you don't always get a chance while they're being enshrined to meet them. But one of the things we've been doing recently is they have a pre-site visit, and the staff gets to meet them. And one of the memorable visits was Orlando Pace, Ohio State guy, and is from Sandusky, Ohio, which is just 2 hours away. And he. You could tell he felt at home, that he was from Ohio, and a lot of the players are kind of stunned when they come in here. But he was very relaxed, and the first thing he did is he did people from most of the people in Ohio are Ohio State fans, and he did he saw all of us there, and he said "OH," and then the staff yelled back "IO." And that was kind of a unique moment. But I did one time, we were doing a production with Joe Namath, and the first time I got to meet him, he had asked for coffee, and I ran down and got him some coffee, and I gave it to him, and he was very grateful that I got him coffee. So I can say I got coffee for Joe Namath. So those
was he wearing one of his crazy fur coats? Or
No.
No.
But he's he's great with the fans, and very personable. Probably the first Hall of Famer I met when I started in '97 was Otto Graham.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we were our offices are down in the basement, and we came up to the ground level, and I forget where we were going, but we were going to somebody's office, and my boss. So I didn't recognize Otto. He kind of had his back turned to us, and my boss said, "They'll let anybody in here." And he turns around and he chuckles, and it's Otto Graham. And my boss says, "Meet Otto Graham." I said, "How you doing?" And of course, he took his team to 10 straight championship games and legendary figure, and so that was quite a thrill. I mean, my first Hall of Famer I get a chance to meet is Otto Graham.
Very cool.
Otto Graham, and he was from the Cleveland area, so he would come by all the time. But yeah, those are some of the some of the memories of some of the Hall of Famers I've had a chance to meet.
Yeah. All right. So what's next for the Pro Football Hall of Fame? What's coming in the future?
Well, we're looking at a big renovation here soon to update the museum. That could be starting in the next year or so. We're also the Hall of Fame Village is next to the hall, and you might have seen the construction equipment out front. They're bringing in a water park. So you can bring your kids to Canton, and they can run through the football-themed water park and then come to the.
Is it going to be called the Hall of Flume?
Hall of Flume, yeah. Hall of Water. No, there was when I first moved here, there was a bar here that was called the Hall of Foam. It didn't last, but of course we're going to have our enshrinement here in the first weekend of August. That's in the short term. A lot of great guys are being inducted. So those are some of the things that the fans can look forward to.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to that as well. Good reason to come back.
Yep.
Jason, thanks so much for spending time with me today. This has been
fun.
Really great. So with that, Jason, we are officially out of time. But before we go, it is my distinct pleasure to inform you that you have been officially inducted into the Hall Pass Hall of Fame of Halls of Fame.
Okay.
For this, you receive no plaque, no bust, no inscription, but you do get a hearty thank you and a congratulations from me. I know this must be a tremendous honor. You have 30 seconds to give me a speech.
Well,
who do you want to thank?
I guess I'd like to thank my parents.
Well, good for you. That's the correct answer.
Yeah, hopefully this will live on forever in the podcast world and YouTube and.
Absolutely. But no, really, in all seriousness, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun speaking with you today. That's going to wrap up things for today's episode. I am Bradley Barth, your Hall Monitor and aspiring one-day podcasting Hall of Famer. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all on the next episode of Hall Pass.